Well, in my last video, I said I wasn't sure if I would make Apex content again, but some of the folks at Apex heard that and asked me to come see Season 22 early. So I want to give a special shout out to EA and Apex for letting me play it. Now, there are a lot of big changes coming, and for me personally, at the very least, I will be testing out the new season when it drops to see how much different the game actually feels. But let's get into what's actually changing this season. Arguably the biggest change is a brand new map, and it's called E-District. It's the urban playground we've been hearing about for some time now. It's a densely packed map with tons of buildings and tons of verticality. It has a real cyberpunk neon feel to it. The map takes place sort of at night, not pitch black like the King's Canyon version, but it is dark. And this will be an interesting feature to see how it affects players and their vision. The map has a ton of freedom of movement. There are just so many zip lines, so many layered buildings that you can play on so many different floors, tons of high ground, tons of interesting newly featured POIs that we just haven't really seen. And every single POI has a ton of different spots to play in. It doesn't feel bare bones at all. There are also these new gravity launchers that are similar to the gravity cannons that we experienced on Stormpoint, but they can work horizontally or vertically depending on which one you find or use. Now, in my playtest, I didn't have a ton of time to really get a great feel for the map. Don't get me wrong, it was fun and it was interesting and it was new, but as far as feeling out, hey, this choke point will be tough or this area is really OP, I didn't really get a grasp on any of that. So that's why I am more intrigued to play this season a little bit more to see how good is this map really. It feels a bit smaller than, say, Stormpoint or maybe even Broken Moon, but I'm not sure exactly what the map size compares to. However, there are several other big changes that I want to get to. Now, one of the biggest complaints I see from players is the matchmaking, right? And matchmaking is so broad, and I think for each player, it can sort of feel different. And what I mean is, like, the newer player is upset that sweats are in their lobbies, but so is that medium skilled player, you know, the middle of the road. Maybe they're a platinum or gold player, and they just like, why am I playing against these Preds? And I think one of the problems that a lot of people don't talk about, and this isn't me trying to make an excuse, it's just that a lot of the players who still play this game are sweats. So inherently, there are just less new players, way more experienced players. And so when the player count dwindles, it's definitely more common to see a merging of skill gaps. But Apex is trying to correct that. At least that's what they're saying. They want to have tighter matchmaking so that they can try to have it be more forgiving for new and low skilled players. They said they plan to release some sort of further communication about this because they didn't get into a ton of specifics besides some of the normal things that we've already heard about. However, this is one of the points of emphasis that they made clear to us, so I am sharing it with you all. There is a new game mode coming at the beginning of the season called Straight Shot Revival, and this game mode is also going to carry over to the trios feature at least for some time. Basically, what's going to happen is there's a whole new respawn method. When you die, you will get a respawn timer, and if your teammates survive, you will just spawn next to them with all of your loot. You're going to land from a drop ship, but if your teammates run from the fight and survive, the timer will be a little bit longer. If your teammates stay and fight, i.e. they deal damage or they even get a knock on that enemy team, your timer to respawn then becomes decreased, so you will respawn faster. This does turn off in the final ring, and the more times you die and try to reset in a fight, the longer the time duration is for you to respawn. Now, this isn't going to be in ranked, and this isn't a core feature that's being added permanently. I get the impression that they're testing this to see how it feels, but it will replace banners and the respawn beacons as a whole while this mode is going on. After playing this, I can say I don't love this change because it takes away a lot of the risk that players have to calculate within a fight. And they mentioned that they made this change so that players weren't incentivized to run as much when a player goes down so that they could just try to craft and respawn them. However, I see the same thing actually occurring because all you have to do is sort of escape the battle for your teammates to come back, and it doesn't really take any risk. You can just stay low key or hide somewhere, and that timer's just going to tick down, and your teammate's going to jump out of the dropship with most or all of their loot, and boom, you're back in the fight. So I really hope this doesn't come to the game, but we'll see. However, one thing that is coming to the game from something that they did test in an LTM is the battle sense mechanic that was added added in the solos LTM. This is going to be in ranked and in pubs. I'm not sure if it'll be in mixtape. They said you can turn it off, but I'm not sure why you would if the enemy you're going to go against has it on as well. If you don't know what battle sense is, it basically gives you a visual indication when you get in the vicinity of another player or team, and it goes away when you get out of that range. They are also adding a new enemy health bar for you and your teammates to see when damage is being done. So you can no longer call out one shot when the player clearly isn't. They've also changed the layout of looting death boxes. They're trying to make some of the things that you need towards the top of the death box so you don't have to scroll as much. So the armor is in a new spot, the shield batteries, the cells, etc. are all higher up in the death box, and that will take some time for you to change that muscle memory around. Now, all of these features that I just listed are added to basically make the game easier for newer players. And while I certainly understand why Apex would want to do that and why they want the game to be more newer player friendly, I do worry at times this will come at the expense of the skill gap that is created in the game. But I had a small sample size of playing the game, so I am curious to see how this plays out and how the rest of the player base thinks of these changes. Moving on though, there is a mid-game loot bin reset. So any bins that are opened at the mid-game will reset. There will now be yellow bins, which will be rare loot like gold items, and there will be one mythic bin per match. This will contain, an Evo cache, gold weapon, and even a care package weapon. However, this one mythic bin is marked on the map for all players to see, and it will take a lot longer to open once you activate the bin. I do think this is a good change, especially when it comes to players who get a reset in a fight. They have to move to a POI that may have already been looted, and there's just no loot to go around. And I also don't think that more loot negatively impacts the game as a whole. A player shouldn't have to worry too much about ammo or things like that when it comes to all of the other features in the game. That's just my opinion though. Okay, moving into some weapon changes. All right, the akimbo feature is here. You can now run 2 P2020s or 2 Mozambiques. Any attachment you pick up for both of these guns will just mirror onto the second. So you don't need to find 2 shotgun bolts or 2 light mags or 2 laser sights. One will carry over to both. Now, the cool feature about the akimbo is the weapons are automatic now, and they've increased the fire rate slightly and tightened the blast pattern since you can't really ADS. Now, there is a slight ADS feature, but it's far from what we're used to. And honestly, after experimenting with these for some time, I think it's pretty balanced. At first, I thought, wow, this is really strong in the firing range. And then in game, it felt definitely strong. Like I used the 2 Mozambiques with Maggie, and I was like, this is really cool. But you got to be really close because of the fact that you can't really ADS, and these weapons already have their limitations, as you know. They are not mid or long range guns. They are exclusively close range guns. And so if you get the hammer points and some attachments, yeah, Kimbo is going to be a viable pick for sure. And this is honestly cool because it boosts those 2 weapons that most people just ignore. LMGs are also getting a significant buff. There is going to be a shield generator hop up. Now this is a gold hop up, but it will provide a front facing shield, and it will take about 40 damage for an enemy to shoot past that. And once they deal that 40 damage, that gun shield goes on a short cooldown. They've added the reverse hipfire buff that the Devotion got last season. So the hipfire for LMGs now will get tighter the more you spray the weapon. So this is a clear buff to LMGs along with the hop up. And I know some people are thinking, hey, how does this hop up affect Gibraltar's gun shield? It just makes his gun shield even better. Shotguns, specifically the Mastiff and PK, are getting changed. They are losing a few of their pellets, but increasing their damage per pellet. And this is in hopes to increase their damage hits, and so you don't hit for 9 anymore with the PK. But we will see how this actually plays out. I didn't get a great read on how effective this change was. However, in theory, I really liked it. And they've changed the blast pattern specifically for the PK. PK's blast pattern used to be a star-shaped, and now it's sort of a W or a V shape. The long-awaited Havoc nerf is coming, but it is just coming to its hipfire for now. I still felt like the Havoc was really strong, and I'm not sure how impactful the hipfire nerf will be overall. I still anticipate the Havoc to be a meta pick. The Hemlock's damage was nerfed from 20 down to 19. They also nerfed the mag size for, I believe, blue and white magazines, and they have increased the duration in between each burst. So several overall nerfs to the Hemlock. Light weapons will be getting buffed. They are getting increases in all mag sizes for all weapons, and ammo stacks are increased all around basically now, with the exception of energy, I believe. Okay, if you've watched this long, well, I still got a lot more changes, but here's one of the biggest ones, and by far one of the most controversial changes. But listen carefully. Aim assist on PC is getting nerfed by about 25%. Now, This does include console players if they crossplay into PC lobbies, but console-only lobbies are unaffected. I can already see how this information is going to get twisted and console players are going to think that this impacts them. For people who don't know, console players do not just go into PC lobbies unless they are queuing up with a PC player. The aim assist nerf I could definitely feel. Now, it wasn't a huge deal, but it was tangible. And for the record, I think this is a pretty healthy change because aim assist was really strong. And I have been one of the controller players who have advocated for a slight nerf to aim assist. This can increase the skill gap for the real controller players. And if you just want to be a casual on console, it will not affect you at all. If you're playing on PC with a controller though, there should be a more level playing field for controller players versus mouse and keyboard players. And I don't want to get further into the debate, so I'll leave it there. But a great feature coming in conjunction with this is aim flinch has now been removed. If you don't know what aim flinch is, it's what occurs when you get hit on flesh. Your aim flinches. This will occur from weapons and most legend abilities. I didn't get a list on which legend abilities were not included in that. However, aim flinch will still occur in the ring because they don't want to promote players fighting in the ring. If you've ever mantled or tried to climb at the same time as your teammate and you both fall off of that wall, well, that's not going to happen any longer. Now you can climb at the same time so you don't bump one another off, which is a small but important quality of life update. The boosted loader can now go on the EVA 8 this season, and when I was playing, the EVA was not in the care package. However, I didn't get to see what weapon they put in the care package in exchange for it, but I'm sure some other creator knows. There are some significant legend changes. They didn't get into real specifics on individual legend changes. That will come in the patch notes, but as an overview, the controller and recon legends received some pretty big changes. So for controller legends, when you scan a ring console and then you are in the zone, you will get an extra 25 shields. Now this is temporary from the standpoint of as long as you're in the circle, you will get that extra 25 boost. I don't believe this occurs beyond red armor. So if you're already at red, this probably won't occur, but they're trying to incentivize controller legends for not only scanning the ring consoles, but also being in the circle. If you walk out of the circle, that extra 25 shield will disappear. They're calling it a zone overcharge. Another quality of life feature is the remote pickup option. You'll be able to remotely pick up traps or anything you've placed down if you are a controller legend, if you're not actually in the same spot where that trap is down. Caustic also has green colored gas traps now instead of the red, so you can make the distinction between friendly and enemy much easier. Now, recon legends, as I said, received a big change. So previously, when you scanned a survey beacon, you got a lot of information. You got to see a UAV of the whole map. Well, that's changing. Instead, there are going to be more beacons that spawn, but it's only going to cover a specific section of the map, 500 meters to be exact. It's going to refresh more often though, so you'll get a more live view of what the enemies are doing around you. But in a trade-off, they're nerfing the Evo gain down to 75, and you will not be able to see the whole map anymore when you scan. I didn't get a great feel for how many more beacons are spawning, but I think that will be the real indicator to see if this change is good or bad for recon legends. Now, a controversial change, or I'm calling it controversial because I think some players were confused as to why this was added, was something called threat vision. This will make enemies highlighted in red up to a certain distance while you are playing as a recon legend. So imagine Bloodhound's ult where enemies are highlighted in red. That's essentially what you're going to get within a certain distance if you're just playing a recon legend, and you don't have to use any abilities to do this. I don't know why they're adding this. It feels like more training wheels for the recon legends and doesn't really feel that necessary. I should say I do know why they're adding it. They are adding it to make it easier for newer players, but I fear it kind of comes at the expense of a skill gap that is created. However, maybe it'll be an innocuous change and not a huge deal. They are tuning ranked slightly. There are going to be 2 ranked rumbles per season now, one at the split, one at the end of the season. I don't really want to get into the ranked rumble because there's just not enough time. Regarding rank changes, they are going to be increasing the RP for certain placement and kill points. Specifically, they mentioned platinum, diamond, and in the masters rank. Now, once again, didn't get specifics here, but they alluded to larger changes coming in the future. They also said that there will be more ranked resets, or that they will be more tighter. So they don't want the diamond player going down to gold and stomping their way through gold and getting back to diamond rather easily. They want it to be tighter. So I imagine they're going to get reset less and closer to whatever they ended their season on, in hopes to play against more skilled players to play into the matchmaking theme I mentioned at the beginning. Now, there is a cool thing being added called a bot Royale, and this is going to be available to all players, and you're going to go into a BR, but you're going to play against all bots, and this will replace orientation matches. But you can go into this and learn and try all of the legends, even if you don't have them unlocked, and just get a better feel for the game, the pacing, the looting, etc., without the sort of downfall or the consequences of running into a sweaty team, or if you just want to go and mess around. I mean, they said these bots are not going to be very strong or very skilled, so it's more for newer players, but I could see experienced players going in there and just trying to, I don't know, blow some steam off or whatever. So I'm all for more game modes being added because I honestly think it only benefits the game. Now, I want to end with this because in my last video, if you saw it, well, you know I talked a lot about cheaters, specifically cheaters in ranked. Now, cheaters definitely tend to congregate in ranked and in the higher ranks, although they do occur in all of the game modes. I did get to ask them about cheaters and what they're actively trying to do, and if they would consider adding a feature where if you died to a cheater, they would refund your ranked points. That feature, they have said they have talked about internally, and it may come, it may not come. They still have a lot to figure out. It's a complicated thing, I guess. But they did say they are going to release a blog post or some form of communication about what they're actively doing against cheaters. They are not going to obviously tip their whole hand, but they did acknowledge they need to be better at communicating what they are doing against the cheaters. And while I am obviously hopeful they can make a huge impact, I don't really know if that impact will be felt or to what extent it will be, but I am eagerly awaiting their formal communication that they said they plan to release sometime at the beginning of the season regarding cheaters. So as you can see, there are a huge amount of changes. I do think a lot of them are good. I think some of them are okay or maybe not very necessary. We are not getting a new legend, obviously, and we'll kind of have to further await the other legend changes that are coming, the specifics, to see how much more the game gets shaken up in terms of meta adjustments and so forth. But I'm intrigued enough, and I saw enough where at least I'll give the game another chance at the beginning of the season, play it out, probably try to figure out the meta, tell you guys about it, and maybe even dive into ranked. If these tuning changes are positive and they're able to combat cheaters, I would still love to play the game, but more will certainly be revealed. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Thanks again to Apex for letting me see the new season, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.